Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're probably listening to this on your way to work as you're doing the dishes, or perhaps as you're disposing of a body. I don't know. I don't judge. Welcome to Rock the Cash Bar. How you doing, Diane?
I'm good. We got dark there.
Episode 29. Are you excited about this? Our podcast is now seriously afraid of its next birthday.
Yeah. Our podcast is about to cry on its next birthday like Dianne did. What a dumbass. Give anything to be 30 again.
Did you cried on your 30th birthday?
Yeah, I drove to work and I cried. And when I got to work, they had decorated my office as over the hill, like as if I was 50.
Oh.
Yeah. I just got a thing that my internet connection is unstable. Can you see me okay?
No, your video's frozen.
Is it really?
Your audio's a little like Transformers-ish, but it's still good. But you're not moving.
It's like Sara said, I feel like I'm the kid with lice. I mean, I just have no control over this. Oh, well. Sorry. All right, let's keep going.
I had way more, I was really worried about turning 30 the day before I turned 30, and then I was 100% fine with it. And I enjoyed being 30 like instantaneously. Like I felt powerful, I felt grown up, I felt like an adult.
Nice.
Nobody ever talks about 35, so I didn't worry about 35 at all. But the second I turned 35, I worried about it for the next like 3 years. It was really, really difficult because I was just like, okay, I'm 35. That's it. Like I'm done growing. Like this is it. This is, yeah.
Is that the peak where we're supposed to like, and then just it's downhill?
I guess it was that way in my head. Like it doesn't feel that way now that I'm 40. But I just remember just like for literally like 2 years after turning 35, like why doesn't anybody tell me about this? And why am I still behaving this way? Like why am I still doing this dumb shit?
Right. I got knocked up at 35, so I had to become an adult.
Oh, my sister's best friend had a baby at 35, and it was really weird because there's like, yeah, they refer to that as a senior pregnancy now.
Oh yeah, I was there's another word for it. It's not elderly, but it's in that same vein where you're just like, can we stop calling it this?
I had a weird meltdown, I think of like a virus related meltdown yesterday.
I'm sorry.
I had to go to Discount Tire to get a tire fixed, and there was some miscommunication. I ended up waiting like 3 hours when it was only supposed to like take an hour. And it doesn't really matter what the miscommunication was, but it was all their fault. Not a big deal, but like it was one of those things where like I took it up. It should have been a 6, and I took it up to a 10, like instantaneously. Like I just went up to the counter and they're just like, "Oh Ben, we've been trying to get a hold of you. We've been calling you on your cell phone." I was like, "Oh yeah, you guys said that you were going to text me." Like, oh yeah, okay, well we were calling you and there was no answer. There's been a problem. And then I just exploded. I just went absolutely nuts. And the guy was just like, whoa, hey, you didn't talk to me earlier, you talked to Ricky. And then before I could like put the words back into my mouth, they were flying out. I was just like, does this whole place run on fucking Ricky? The next time I come in here, do I need to ask if it's Ricky's day off? Like, I'm just like, I'm flapping my skinny little arms around like one of those inflatable things you see in front of the cell phone store, and I'm wearing a mask that is like it's pink with little white hearts, so it looks for all the world like I'm wearing panties on my face as I'm just screaming at this guy in just like impotent middle-aged rage. Like I can feel my bald spot getting bigger. It was horrible.
Was there anyone behind the counter that you saw doing this? Like just slowly?
Yeah, there were plenty of people behind the, because like it's like everybody's upset. It's hot. Everybody, you're there with a surprise flat, so everybody's upset. So like the customers there, I was kind of letting the air out for them. It was almost like a pressure release.
Right.
Like I didn't think of it because I'm not usually I don't usually get angry. Certainly not with strangers. But
I don't
like
picture
this was
you
a
being
situation
like
that needed Gary Sinise, and I sent in John Malkovich. Like it was awful. I felt really, really bad about it.
That's really perfect.
So I just want to see the security camera footage. I really do. Like I want to see like goofy guy, dumb pink mask, stupid Hawaiian shirt, spaghetti noodle arms, going absolutely apeshit.
If you could request that, I might pay for that, and we can put it on Patreon.
Just like hey, I'm gonna write a really nasty Yelp review unless you send me.
Give me that. We need that. Footage. We have a podcast.
But I was thinking on my way out the door, that was the very first conversation that I've had with a stranger since March 15th.
Whoa.
So I'm not ready to get back in public. Like I'm not. They're total emotional miscalibration. But anyway.
All right. We'll tiptoe. We'll tiptoe back when it's ready.
It's all right because we got a fun one.
Yeah.
This episode, we're turning to planet Earth's repository of positive vibes. We're doing an episode on the Beatles.
Yes, we are.
And I think before we talk about what song we're going to do, let's bring on our special guest. Do you want to introduce Tommy?
You have more history with Tommy. I'm just going to say Tommy is, God, my internet is unstable. I'll just say that Tommy is a Houston comic, a kind of legendary Houston comic. He's very funny. He's a friend to everyone. And he's a massive Beatles fan. I said
yes,
fan.
He's the man.
Let's let him in.
He's the man we call the wizard. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tommy Drake. Tommy, are you there?
Hello.
He can hear us.
There he is. Hi, Tommy. Thank you very much for coming and putting up with yet more of my bullshit.
Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of both of you separately and together. So, yes, thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, I'm going to apologize in advance because I think I'm the one with the shitty internet connection. So just raise your hand if I'm frozen or if you can't understand me.
I can't see your face. I can hear you just fine.
Damn. I don't know. We've never recorded at 5, but we'll keep going. We'll see.
As nice as it is to see Ben's face, it'd be nice to see yours as well.
I'm sorry.
Diane's face is far, far nicer than mine.
All right,
nobody's arguing about this.
I get that a lot. Like my friends who listen to the podcast or look at the pictures on Instagram are always just like, "Who is the woman you do your podcast with?" She's married to a very tough, very accomplished, very nice man. I don't think you got a chance in hell. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it feels good. Thanks.
Yeah, but Ben, her face has no character though. It's just pretty. Your face tells a story.
It tells a story of just it's lined. It's got clearly that's a man with addictions. That's a guy with problems.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking as we were putting this episode together that you, outside of my family and ex-girlfriends, you have actually probably put up with more of my dumb bullshit than just about anybody else. Like every time I try to think of like a funny intro Tommy story, it's always just like what an asshole I am.
That's good. Well, our buddy John Wessling and I did a show together recently in Lake Jackson.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
While driving to Lake Jackson, I had to tell him the Lake Jackson story, which is my favorite part of that story is you, while on stage in the middle of your set, completely drunk, looking at me saying, "You'll thank me for this later."
Oh no.
That was my favorite moment. There's no reason to tell the rest of the story.
You were doing me a favor. I was never able to headline any gig anywhere. I was getting paid to do 20-minute spots, and honestly, I had looking back on it now, maybe 30 seconds of that was actually worth anybody watching. So I'm in way over my head anyway. And they needed somebody to come and play this bar to headline. And I got it, and I was feeling really unsure, but it fell to me. Nobody thought I could do it. So you were sitting at the bar one night, and I was like, "Tommy, you want to come down and headline this?" And it's $80 for you. You didn't need the money, and it's a 2-hour drive for a dumb show, and then to come all the way back. But you very graciously did it. So I went down there.
And it was you and me and David Chuber.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Chuber hosted and actually did well.
Yes, he did.
and introduced you, and that's when it got super interesting.
Oh wow!
This bar was bring your own booze. They sold
beer. Yes, they had a beer and wine license, but you were allowed to bring liquor. Everybody had what do you call it? A handle of something at their table.
Yeah,
and they were free pouring for you during your set.
Yes, as I'm up there just absolutely suffering. I think I was supposed to do 20 and you were probably supposed to do 40 or something like that, right?
Yeah, that was
it.
And
for some reason, I got drunk enough and felt confident enough up there for no reason whatsoever because they absolutely hated me, even though they were giving me more booze. But I honestly thought, it's a drunk thought, but it was an honest thought. I really did think I was doing you a favor by going well over my time.
You went long. And you during your set, you said to me in front of the entire audience, "You will thank me for this later." 25 minutes into a 20-minute set. I got in the car with you guys. I just said yes. I got in the car with you guys and went just to do it. I didn't get my wallet or my ID out of my own car because I was riding in your car.
Yes.
I had to drive home because you were way too drunk to drive. And we got pulled over immediately. And Chuber's in the back. You're completely fall down drunk. I'm a little bit drunk. I was able to remember my driver's license number. As we're pulling out from getting pulled over, you're throwing up on the side of your own car. And David Chuber pulls up his half-full beer that was between his feet. Says, oh, that was a close one.
I was going to ask, how did Chuber end up being the good guy in this story?
He was kind of the good guy. He was... Chuber's good if you're getting pulled over. He's a good guy to
have. I'll never be 22. That's actually a kind of a good story before we go into because it's about the passage of time. And this,
yes.
Okay, Tommy, you're a big Beatles fan, and I kind of want to set this up a little. I respect the Beatles. I understand that without their influence, a lot of the music that I love never would have happened.
Yeah.
But I've always felt trapped by the Beatles, like they're just always there. Like the Simpsons had that joke about them, just like, oh, the Beatles, they're the band that made all of Maggie's baby albums.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've always felt, because you're a little bit older than me, but not that much anymore.
Yeah, a little bit. But actually, I want to talk. I'm such a fan of the Beatles. We could talk about this for 8 hours. So I don't even know if I'm going to get to it. I'm a little bit older than you, but as far as being a Beatles fan, that's a significant age gap, because do you remember when John Lennon died?
No, I was.
Because you were just a little too young.
Yeah.
And I was just old enough that it's my earliest memory. And
what year was it?
Super traumatic. We're talking about 1980, and it's up to that point, people my age, within 3 or 4 years of my age, had never seen adults cry, had never seen, everybody on television would get choked up for a week. And then grown people would turn on the radio and this song we're going to talk about would play. It was one of the 3 or 4 songs that they played in association with John Lennon's death, where every radio station would play it at the same time. And people that you've never seen cry would start crying. And when you're 8 years old, that makes a huge impact on you.
For sure, yeah.
Wow.
Like this was the first important person in my life that ever died,
Mm-hmm.
But I might be getting way ahead of where we were going.
This is your Kennedy getting shot to, the other generation.
Yeah, very, very much, and, and I knew he was famous enough that I knew who he was, and I knew, right. I knew his songs. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about is the Beatles songs. Sometimes you feel trapped by them because a lot of the Motown songs too, some of them have these melodies that little kids are drawn to, that for some reason that musically they connect with. And I remember connecting with Beatles songs when I was very young, and some of the Smokey Robinson songs, just because they have this sort of melody that introduces children to music. So I think that's another way you get trapped by the Beatles, John Westling's daughter is learning how to play the guitar, and she's learning Beatles songs.
Right.
And this is, 55 years later, there's a 12-year-old girl learning to play Beatles songs. You're trapped by them.
Yeah, they're straight up eternal now.
Well, I feel like the trashy girl in My Fair Lady, because here's my background. I wasn't raised with the Beatles. My dad was a white trash teenager from Texas, and it was all Skinnerd. Hardcore Skinnerd. There was no Beatles in my house growing up. I learned about the Beatles through Aerosmith, Come Together, found out was a Beatles song. A lot of Depeche Mode covered Beatles. I thought I was digging a Martin Gore song. They're like, no, dumbass, that's a Beatles song. So that's how I learned about the Beatles. And, as I got older, obviously I learned more, but I always just thought of them as being like a higher class of music if you were raised knowing Beatles songs instead of like, I could sing Give Me 3 Steps when I was 4 years old. I mean,
That's interesting that because I mean we're not that far in age, but I do think it's a gap for the Beatles. You thought that it was a higher class of music?
Yeah, I did. It was British. You know, it wasn't hillbillies like talking about like cheating on their women.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's great because you know of course they were branded when they first came out as like the lowest of low. They were
right.
you know they were playing poor people music. You know, so it's great that you thought that they were high class.
Oh, they're classy.
Yeah, like poor people music in German strip clubs, no less.
Oh yes, Hamburg. That's what made them. That's what made. We could talk about all that. I'm obsessed. It's weird. I don't.
Good.
You know, I kind of feel like you guys agreed to let me talk for 90 minutes and not say anything because I have so much.
I'm
I
okay
just have
with
so
it.
much to talk about with the Beatles. You know. I don't
The
know.
way we usually do it is we talk about the song that we're going to do, and then we go through the lyrics sort of line by line, and then after that we just talk about how we relate to it and where we found it, and you know what period of our life it most speaks to. And with this song, I think it's going to be. I don't know. I might start crying.
I have it at multiple phases in my life, meaning different things, weirdly.
Yeah.
But I do want you to read these lyrics as if it's a love poem that you've written to myself and Dianne. But I want you to read them. I want you to read them, and I want you to stop after the first passage. I want you to stop after that first little paragraph because I have a pretty good story about these lyrics.
Well,
Now, Dianne, imagine, and you're not a huge Beatles fan, imagine that Corbin wrote you this, said I wrote you a poem, and then just read you this first part, and tell me your real response to it.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed. Some forever, not for better. Some have gone, and some remain.
Tom is laughing.
Keep going. Keep going.
All these places had their moments with lovers and friends I can still recall. Some are dead and some living in my life. I've loved all.
That's it. That's the first part of your poem. It's all about other lovers.
Yes.
And he's loved them all.
Yeah. I love them all.
He's had numerous loves. This is my love poem to you. I've had numerous loves. That's the first part of this.
I got it. We've talked about this. We've talked about your numbers when we were drunk one time. All your trips, all your moments. I got it. You're awesome. Keep going.
In 1965, I think this was a pretty radical notion. Okay. Now it turns into a love poem now, but I have a pretty good story about how that first part can be a little bit misinterpreted.
All right.
For sure.
Yeah.
But of all these friends and lovers, there was no one compares with you. And these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new.
All right, you got me back.
Yeah, there it is, right away, right?
Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them in my life. I love you more.
Okay. Again, he comes with, I will never lose affection for other people I've loved. I know I would never will. Which is, it's a shocking thing to put in a love poem. It's super honest and way more honest than any other song that came out before 1965.
Sure.
Nobody else, every other song up until that point was, I didn't know what love was till I met you.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And John says, if I, that the meaning of his memories would change if he thought that this love was something new. That would change the meaning of his memories. It would change who he was if he thought, oh, this is something I've never felt.
Right.
So he's giving you permission to love more than one person.
Right. It's very free love, and it's very mature. It was a very mature way to look at love back then.
And every other song that the Beatles wrote until about 1968 or 69 was very immature about love. This was way ahead of its time.
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of a double meaning kind of hidden in there, where there's a sense like I think we're kind of like accustomed to thinking of love as like a new romance, right? Like that's what we're,
Yes.
because all we have are movies and music to sort of describe it to us, right? Nobody ever tells you what it's like to be in a 25 year or a 10-year marriage. Like it's hard to think of love as this butterfly feeling, you know, or maybe we're complex enough to think of it in the Mr. Rogers way, where it's an active verb. Like, no, you're going to wake up and you're going to actively love me today.
I have an interpretation of the and the solo that goes right with what you're talking about, actually. But I think these lyrics are, we hear them now and we just think, you know, it's a beautiful melody. It's a very sweet love song. But I think that it was shocking to reference other lovers, you know? And my theory, the funny theory is that Cynthia found John's iPhone and broke into it and saw some messages in his iPhone. And he was trying to explain to her that of course he still communicates with other friends and lovers, but he loves her more. This is him trying to make up for getting caught.
It's
interesting. Everybody thinks that we're singing this at the same time on the recording, but it wasn't. It was John singing over a recording of himself, which I think has meaning too. So it was John's voice twice on this recording.
Yeah, almost like he's erasing those memories or changing those memories.
Or it's a speech he's saying to more than one. You know, because, you know, it could be applied to all kinds of people. And I first heard this song as a lullaby, as my mother singing it to me and my brothers, and it can certainly be interpreted as that. You know, I love more. Perhaps Dianne froze up on me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. You got really garbled there, and I didn't hear what you said. I don't know why. My internet's never been this bad. Say that part again.
I was saying that I first was, this song was like a lullaby. This song was something my mother would sing to me and my brothers. And it can certainly be interpreted that way. That's something you would sing to your child, right? And I love you more, something you would say to your child. That's
what I had written in my notes, is that I was going to make a joke that I was listening to the song in my headphones last night and looking over at Corbin. And I was like, you know, if he had to dedicate the song to somebody, it would be our butt ugly dog Maggie, because they were in an embrace at that moment. I mean, she's the ugliest little dog. She's got an underbite, and he was just like almost making out with her. But 100%, this is how you feel about your child, where you're like, oh, all these other types of love I thought I knew. Like, I thought I loved my husband, my parents. And then you have your baby. And like, when my baby was born, he was covered in like baby acne, and he looked like Wallace Shawn from Princess Bride. You know, that's inconceivable. He looked like that guy. And me and Corbin just sat there and bawled. Like, we were just crying. We're like, fuck, we love this hideous thing so much. But yeah, when I read these lyrics, I just think like, yeah, all these other things I've loved in life. And I'm like, your child, you're just going to love them more.
Yeah, I love that the song acknowledges the other loves, though. That really wasn't happening at that time, you know? And after experiencing this song as sort of a lullaby, it got interpreted a completely different way after John Lennon got shot. And there were times when every TV station would play this song, or it'd be on the radio, and people would cry. And at that time, it was sort of interpreted as a love letter from John to his fans a little bit.
Right.
Which was a different interpretation. And then later in my wedding, which was 25 years ago, I don't know if Ben was referencing that on purpose, but I'm 25 years into a marriage. This was the song that we did the dance, you know, where the wedding party joins us on the dance floor.
Yeah.
This was that song. Well, the funny story I wanted to tell is I was on a cruise ship for my anniversary. My wife was joining me, the piano bar guy, this guy, Russell, Filipino guy. He's probably 5 feet tall and probably 75 years old, but he looks like he's 30. He's from the Philippines. He's been playing the piano his whole life. I'm on the ship a couple days before Becky. I go, Russell, it's my anniversary. This Beatles song that I love was at my wedding. Could you play it and sing it when I bring my wife in? Because I'm trying to be smooth. This is smooth, right? This is my 20th anniversary, I think.
Should we tell the audience you're working this cruise ship? They may not
Oh,
understand.
I'm a comedian. Yeah, I'm a comedian performing on this cruise ship.
Sorry, that's why I was laughing when you started to tell the story. Like, it totally sounded like, so I'm on a cruise for my anniversary.
No, my wife is there.
Later.
Yeah, this is not as interesting as it sounds now. I'm working on my anniversary, which is horrible. But I talked to the piano bar guy, and he goes, yeah, he's from the Philippines. He's got an accent, but he sings beautifully. He's an amazing piano player. And he goes, yeah, I used to be in a Beatles tribute band. I know that song. I trust that he knows that song. I tip him. We're entertainers. We're taking care of each other. I bring Becky in. He makes this nice speech. He acts like he and I are much better friends than we are, and everybody in there claps for us. And he starts playing the song beautifully and singing it beautifully. But the end of that first verse is, in my life, I've loved them all. And then the rest of the verses end, in my life, I love you more. Well, when he played this song with his band, he didn't sing it. So he didn't know all the words.
Uh-oh. He
got the first verse right, but he never got to the I love you more part. So a wedding song was like this, just all about other lovers, apparently. And we're this romantic couple dancing. But, he didn't know. That's how he remembered the lyrics. But I noticed, and Becky noticed, and we're laughing at the end of it. We're like, no, he's never going to say I loved you more. He's not going to do it. Yeah, no, he's not. No, and he didn't.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really great. So
now,
at the end of each lyric, was it, and in my life, I've loved them all?
I've loved them all. Every time it was, I've loved them all. And I thought, that's so.
I would love it if he slipped up and said, I loved them more.
I love them more. Oh, that'd be even better. That would be even better.
She's like, this is wonderful. Thank you.
So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I was a little upset. I've been asked to talk about Beatles songs before. I always say Rocky Raccoon. Nobody ever wants to talk about it. It's fine. I'm letting it go.
Oh, you're talking about that Jack Johnson song? Because that's the first time I heard that one.
Yeah, I'm talking about that Jack Johnson. And that's how people know the Beatles, right? Is somebody else saying their song. But we picked this song because I'm like, it's super personal to me. It's certainly one of the best songs of all time. I'd love to talk about it. I know a lot about this song. And then I'm doing research, like we all are probably, and I realized, okay, this is probably one of the most talked about pop songs of all time, most debated, but it's all about the melody. Nobody seems to talk about these lyrics,
Right.
And the story about the melody is amazing. It's the only melody that John and Paul argued over who wrote.
Right.
And I think from what Ben was saying, my interpretation of the melody was always it finishes right at the end of the song. It has this wonderful sort of balanced mathematical conclusion to this melody that never happens. The first part of the melody happens over and over, and it only finishes one time. And I think that sort of represents how John's talking about relationships and love, that the first part of it happens over and over in your life, but the conclusion only happens one time at the end of the song. I think the melody sort of goes with that story.
Yeah. I like
and then
that.
And then the I don't know if you guys know about the George Martin weird funky piano organ solo. Mm-hmm. In the solo part of the song was he played it in the studio at half speed, like down an octave, because he couldn't play it the way he wanted it to sound, and then sped it up on the recording. So it's not being played live at that speed.
Okay.
But I also think that sort of symbolizes at the beginning of the song that melody starting over and over as if it's a bunch of different loves that you have early in your life. And then the fact that the solo has very little to do with the song, is completely sped up and faked. That represents a 25-year marriage right there. That represents that long-lasting end-of-your-life love, is this big sort of fake odd piano solo that's some kind of a trick, and then the end of the melody happens. It represents like wherever you end up, I think.
I like how we can carve out these stories from a mistake, but it works.
Yeah, and that's just what Beatles fans do. We're giving them way more credit than they deserve for
Right.
a lot of the stuff that they did, because they were just being different and funky. And John sang over himself because he was in a studio where he was allowed to sing over himself. That was high tech back then.
Right.
I don't think he did it because he was singing the song to more than one woman. But
Right.
he did say, you know, he was referencing other lovers. There are other songs where the Beatles reference other lovers in love songs. Something is another good example, too, of their love songs where they're talking about other lovers. People didn't do that back then.
You're right. I don't know if you guys have ever, this is probably, I don't know if you've ever heard of Mason Jennings. He's kind of like a singer-songwriter guy. And he's got this great song called The Darkness Between the Fireflies. And he talks about that, like, you've been in love before, the past is beautiful like the darkness between the fireflies. And that was the first time I'd ever really heard someone, like, it's a song about like your past is wonderful, like I'm not, you know, don't be ashamed of any of it. It was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I think like he's allowed to have a song like that because of the Beatles, maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely been done again over and over, and it's been done but a lot of times, even in the song you're talking about, I haven't heard it, but I would guess that that song, the interesting part about In My Life is it's such a beautiful song and such a beautiful melody. And other songs along those lines, talking about accepting your past, are sometimes darker or a little bit, or even more tongue-in-cheek, you know, like who was it that did like Love the One You're With, you know?
Right.
You know, it's more of a tongue-in-cheek lyric. And this is just like a beautiful love song that acknowledges your past and says, without those memories lose their meaning if you pretend that you weren't in love,
right,
you know, when you were 14 with the boy that sat in front of you, you know, then it ruins who you are.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost like John Lennon, as much as this song seems to be about nostalgia, he's looking forward as much as he's looking back. Like most of the lines are nostalgic. They're saying these places and people that I remember, right? But the real, like the powerful lines, you know, when I think of In My Life, I Love You More is obviously the thesis. So he's kind of like, you can almost see him like sort of like gesturing grandly back into his years, because he's John Lennon of the Beatles, right? There's no way he can approach a woman and act as if you're the first woman I've ever been with or the first woman I've ever loved. Like you spent,
right.
By 65, you spent 5 years being a really popular rock star, being John Lennon.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But still at the time, I think it needs to be noted, he says some are dead, some are living. At that time in his life, I mean, now the three of us can talk about friends that are dead because of our age.
Yeah.
When he was 25, he's talking about his mother and Stuart Sutcliffe. He's talking about two people when he says some are dead. And his mother, Julia, who was more like an aunt, who wasn't really the woman that raised him, who died when he was 17. And Stu Sutcliffe, who was his friend, who was in Hamburg with him when they played, you know, 8 hours every night, and who died very young, and who, you know, and Stu Sutcliffe is a whole other thing that Beatles people go on and on about. But yeah, so when he says some are dead and some are living, it's one of those songs that he wrote that just got more meaningful the more life he lived, I think.
mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
We covered Nirvana's All Apologies, and that's one of those songs that just feels like a message to the listeners after he died, a lot like this one.
Oh, yeah, super prophetic song, I think, you know. And when I listened to the song a couple times today, to prepare for this, and I think about all of these memories in one, whatever it is, less than 3 minute listen to this song. I think about my mother putting on the vinyl, and I'm embarrassed to say, as a kid on vinyl, we heard it on the Red album, which was the compilation album, not off of Rubber Soul.
Okay.
But we're listening to the vinyl. We're still listening to it on vinyl, which is pretty good. Over and over, and this was one of the better songs on the second half of that Red album, and it was one of the ones that we would put back and listen to over and over as little kids.
Right.
And I remember that, and I remember my mom singing it to us, and then I remember John Lennon being shot. I remember it being played on all the TVs at once, and I remember it being at my wedding, and I remember it on the cruise ship all at once. This is one of those songs that brings back all those things in one listen, you know?
Wow.
So I didn't realize, so I'm not that upset about the Rocky Raccoon thing.
Okay.
Right? Because when I started thinking more about this song, I started thinking this is really cool. Now, what do you guys think about the fact that John and Paul really didn't disagree about writing any melodies except for this one? Like,
I think that's pretty key.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
do you have any theories as to why this would be the one melody they fought about?
Because it's such a solid, never-ending, like eternal. Like, I think if you hear that song, then you understand, and you're a musician, then you understand how it's going to sit in people's brains. You understand that, like, you've made something eternal. Yeah.
I do believe that, but I believe that they did that more than once. I believe the Beatles did that more than once. I believe you could say that about Let It Be, or Hey Jude, or even a song like Blackbird or something like that.
Well,
they didn't disagree about those melodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something more going on with this song, honestly.
Well, is this the first time that they cracked that code and like figured, like, because they had great songs prior to this, like you know, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and but like
this was the first. I could tell you this was the first song that John was proud of.
Yeah, I read that quote. He said this is the first like real work that I've done, because it's the first time I was talking about something that happened to me personally, which means that John Lennon has never wanted to hold a woman's hand. He's never wanted to twist and shout.
No, he didn't. That's somebody else even wrote that one. But none of it. It was all a lie. And the story's great. The story that he was challenged by our reporter. You know, when are you going to write about your life?
Yeah.
Which is where the "in my life" part came from. It's great that he took, because imagine, like, the way I think of John Lennon, I hear that story and I think that reporter is a dick. Like, why would you say that to John Lennon? The time, though, John Lennon was just a young pop star, you know, and this reporter is challenging him, and it worked. It worked. He actually wrote something that we're talking about, you know, 56 years later, how it affects our lives.
Yeah, and then he did it again and again and again.
Well, you look at their entire discography, like all of their songs, and from what I've read, all of the bandmates choose this as the best one. They all say this was their favorite song.
Yeah, well, it really was a melody and a song and a recording too. I mean, you have to put George Martin into the talk about this song too, that made them legitimate musically.
Right.
You know, up until this point, the symphony wasn't covering any Beatles melodies until this one came out. You know, that was something that real musicians would play and cover. And I think that it's important, as cheeky as the lyrics can be interpreted, that it was supposed to be a beautiful poem. Now, my theory about why they argue about it's supposed to be a beautiful love poem is what I was trying to say. My theory about how they argue about this melody is a little bit about their method at the time. John was a poet. John would write words. And oftentimes, John would come up with the first phrase of the song. The first line of the song was part of his method. And if it was a good first line, and Norwegian Wood is a great example. I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. It's a great first line. And that's all he brought to the table. And he says, I got a great idea for a song. And he would kind of sing it to Paul. And then they would start riffing. And this isn't unlike how Ben and I wrote some stand-up comedy.
I was about to say this. Someone shows up with a premise. Now let's roll.
Exactly. You know, and who really wrote that? Well, John walked into the room with the idea. So it's his bit, right? It's his song. John had written this poem because he was challenged in this interview. In my life, the poem's in my life. And he imagined a bus ride home through his neighborhood, and Penny Lane was in there and all this stuff in the first part of In My Life. And he brought that poem and he goes, this is the best thing I've ever written, and tells Paul, we got to write this song. And he starts singing the poem in this melody. This is John's story. He had the melody. He sings the poem to Paul. Paul says, give me a minute, sits at a piano, makes some notes, comes back and says, I think I got it. Let's suss it out. And then Paul says, let's cut out all these street names. Let's cut out all this stuff. The best lines in this are the, you know, I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. You're not saying I'm never going to think about those people again. You're just saying, I know I will. I love you more. Like Paul pushed the song in the right direction and actually organized this melody. And Paul's story is John came in and said, I wrote a poem, read it to him, and Paul came up with the whole melody. And Paul said he was inspired by Smokey Robinson when he was writing this melody. But that's not unusual because Paul says that about every melody he ever wrote, that he was inspired by somebody. I was thinking about this person when I wrote that, because he's so concerned about being accused of stealing something.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy to think that even Paul McCartney has that imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
like,
but that's
Paul McCartney. He's getting up in front of that.
Everything he says, and he listens to music so that he can tell people that's who inspired me to write this song. John Lennon, on the other hand, just had apparently just symphonies in his head that he sometimes could, and he was a talented musician too. People don't realize John could sit at a piano or grab a guitar and make the noises happen, but he would often just sing it, and Paul would be the one that was getting the notes down.
Right.
And I do think that they were both super proud of this song. And I know that John wrote all the words. I know that Paul edited all the words. And I think that Paul wrote that last part, that ending of the melody. I think that's the only part of the melody that he wrote, was the sort of the conclusion of it, you know?
You think so?
Yeah, but I think that this is John's. I mean, everybody sort of knows that this is a John Lennon lyric, you know?
Right.
When you listen to the words, you get that it's a John Lennon lyric. And I think that John had the melody, I do. Because it's similar, and I know you guys probably read the thing that the math students did to determine that John must have wrote this melody.
Right.
Yep.
I'm a math guy myself, and I think that's really cool. And I think that there's a lot of mathematics musically in this song, but I do think that Paul McCartney says that he's a style imitator. I don't think he was incapable of writing this melody.
Right.
I just don't think he wrote it, you know?
Okay.
And it is very similar to some other very personal John Lennon melodies, you know? He was a ballad writer. Those were his best melodies.
Interesting. Me and Ben always wonder what's that like in a band dynamic, to, you know, like when one person's writing and other people are writing the music, and like, you know, how does that flow? And I'm wondering if it, you know, sometimes they flow like this, and maybe on this song they just flowed so much together that they couldn't figure out where one stopped and the other started, that, you know.
Yeah, you can't keep track of who's driving the collaboration.
Right.
And this was also very shortly after they signed papers saying that everything that they wrote, they were going to say they wrote together.
Oh.
So
okay.
This song was written within a year of making that business decision. So that's another reason why it might have been the first song they wrote after making this decision, that they were going to get double credit on everything that they wrote.
Right.
You know.
So they legally felt like they had to say that, and then they like,
maybe.
I don't know. It's
No,
strange to argue about it.
There's another underground theory that they kept arguing about this melody because they stole it from.
Where
they
did
both
knew that it wasn't
original.
from?
I have no idea.
And no one has ever peeped up and said, that's mine.
Nobody's ever said that's my melody, but at the time, you know, they were playing in places where there were a lot of musicians that were street performers, that were homeless, that were, you know, living in the back of the club and playing every night, that they could have picked up this melody in Hamburg from some other performer and never got called on it. You know,
yeah,
I don't know if that's true. But
there's
that's
so many
theory.
Parallels to stand-up comedy. You know, if some headliner is going to, you know, dropping in on a Podunk Town's open mic and they hear one good bit and they're like, that kid doesn't have a chance of taking it. You know, it could happen. You think about Ted Hawkins, that musician that was just almost like a poor hobo on the streets until someone finally was like, you, come on, let's make a record. I mean, I could see, I mean, he was great. And you could just see, you know, maybe John Lennon's walking down the streets of Venice and was like, that homeless
I do all of Diane's old material on cruise ships.
Wonderful.
It's not my strongest show, but it does well.
Absolutely not.
It does well though. It's my second strongest show.
So me and other comics have threatened Ben and offered money to take his jokes that he is no longer doing. He has a joke that I want so bad.
Yeah.
I will do it if you'll let me have it.
You know, Diane, eventually Ben is going to need that money.
I need
Hold
it
out
right
on your
now.
offer. Yeah, no, Ben's one of my favorite writers of all time. I'm with
It's
you on
all for
that.
sale. I'm open to any offer. Or not open. I'll listen to any offer. I don't know if I'll accept it.
I
No.
try to recreate your credit card courtesy joke, but I can never remember exactly how you end it, like with the gas station champagne. Is it like
Or something like that. Yeah, it's just the joke was just like my bank card or my credit card started calling me. They're just like, "Hey Ben, you spent $25 on gas station champagne and cigarettes at like every day this week." I'm like, "Yeah, what's the problem with that?" And they're just like, "Well, we just thought you might be lonely." And
you had done it another way one time where you're saying they do these courtesy calls, like if someone puts a lot of money on your card and they want to make sure you spent that money and your card wasn't stolen, but they're just like, "Hey Ben, we saw you bought some gas station champagne and some cigarettes. How you doing?" That's a courtesy call.
Sometimes I would get up, like I would get off stage and the comics in the back room would just be like, you're not doing nearly enough with that joke. First of all, the setup's too long and there's only one punchline. Like, that's a bit. Like, you got to get into that conversation. The bank that actually gives a shit about you.
It's so good.
I steal a joke from, I consider myself kind of like the curator of Tommy's dirty jokes. Because Tommy does, he does cruise ships. He does like very TV clean stuff.
I'm known for being clean, yeah. So, yeah, that's what you want to steal. You want to steal my dirty? I'm never going to call you on that. I'm never going to claim it.
I steal it when I'm working, when I'm bartending. If a couple comes in, they're just like, "Yeah, we don't know what we want to drink." I'll be like, "Well, I've got a good couples drink that I like to make. It's called one of them is the drink for the ladies called the Sex with Your Panties On, and then the drink I want to make for you, sir, is called the left side of my dick is chafing."
Wow. I mean, I remembered it after you started talking.
Oh, that's great.
I'm not good technically. I just pulled out my headphones. I remembered it after you started talking, but I'd forgotten about that bit. But yeah.
That's awesome. So since you have to work clean so much, do you completely forget about old dirty bits? Bits?
Yeah, some of them. I mean, I still do, unrated shows every now and then. And by the time I get to them, I'm usually excited about doing some dirty material. But yeah, I do forget, like bits like that, I had completely forgotten about. But yeah, and it's funny. I think Ben and I actually had a discussion about how it's only funny if it's the left side for some reason.
I was thinking about that today, and it's because it's entirely technically correct.
It is.
Now that I'm older and have a little more experience, like you would use your left hand to pull the panties aside, which doesn't mean it's going to be left because your right hand free in case trouble brews.
I just thought like brace.
And we're talking house left, stage right. We're talking.
Oh, that's great.
I know Ben well enough, and we don't talk enough, and it's nice to talk to both of you, but I know Ben well enough to know that he was changing his punchline about what to do with his other hand while he was talking to us just there were weapons in that hand. He was choking her with the hand, and then he softened it up. He pulled back and he said, "Just in case there's trouble." But in my head, I heard like 8 other punchlines before he got to that one. I mean, I'm proud of what you chose. I think it was a good choice, but
all of them would have worked.
Yes, but slightly different interpretation makes the joke completely different. I'm bringing it back to the song now.
There you go.
There was a very controversial live interpretation of this song by George Harrison in a tour that I think we should talk about.
Let's do it.
In my life, I love God more.
He very, very religious man, that George.
Very spiritual man.
Yeah.
And some Beatles fans got super upset about this. And one of the odder, funnier complaints was from some religious people, some conservative Christians, saying he shouldn't take a song that John Lennon wrote about sex and drugs and make it about God. There is no evidence that the song was about sex or drugs, but could it be a song about drugs or alcohol?
That just showed where their dirty minds were going.
Exactly. Could it be a song about a vice?
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, is this a song that a lonely Ben Mowbray sings to his $25 gas station champagne in his hotel room?
It could very well be.
I cannot get my.
Is that what makes it a great song? That you know, that McCartney took the specifics out of it. There's no women's names in it. There's no street names. There's no.
Because that's what listeners want. We want to make it our own. Don't muddle it up with like real people. It messes up our fantasy. You got to keep it open and vague a little bit.
And I think we don't want to know.
Yeah. Not our business.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe. Now, is this I would argue that this might be the first song that the Beatles wrote for boys.
For boys?
For boys that appealed to a more mature relationship, that appealed to intellectually to maybe instead of a teenager, to somebody that was maybe on their second or third relationship.
Well, okay, that's what I don't know about the timeline of this song. Was this on that album that we talked about, was like a big segue from like I Want to Hold Your Hand?
It wasn't on Revolver, no. It was on Rubber Soul, which
that's
was
right.
They hadn't really gotten more progressive yet at that time. Okay. This is 1965. This is still early on, which is why the song, if this song came out in 1970, it would still be a classic, but I don't think it would have been as important as it coming out in 1965.
Okay. The Summer of Love hadn't happened yet. So this idea of I loved other people. Yeah, I get what you're saying now, is a little shocking.
Well, I think probably songs like this made the Summer of Love happen. Like it made it okay to have those sorts of conversations.
Yeah.
That's how I've always interpreted it. And that's, you know, that's why I love that this song was in my wedding, because, you know, Becky and I have been married for 25 years, but she was married before, you know, and I've been traveling the whole time, and we have these separate lives and adventures, but we always come back to each other. You know, I think it's I think it's the kind of song that even, you know, the Beatles couldn't really appreciate when they wrote it, you know?
Right. They were still so young.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fun. I do want to talk about, because we were talking about all the different songs to cover, and we have to talk about this nugget of Come Together.
Oh, right. I forgot. Ben mentioned it earlier, but we can talk about it. I wrote a paper on this song when I was in high school.
So yeah, obviously the first time I heard it was Aerosmith, and I just heard it as pure sexual innuendo. And then like in 5 seconds of Googling, I see the Timothy Leary and the campaign, and I'm like, whoa, what's happening?
I didn't know anything about. I thought up until this week that Come Together was just more like Alice in Wonderland, like nonsense talk. Like it was that Lewis Carroll, like Jabberwocky, like we're just going to have some really entertaining, whimsical lyrics.
More than often, when the Beatles used nonsense talk, they were using slang from their youth and trying to put dirty messages into their songs. Their nonsense talk. What's the good example?
Yellow Submarine.
Finger pies, and Yellow Submarine or Penny Lane. Finger pies was about them, you know, making out, getting under girls' skirts. You know, so when they use nonsense, but Come Together was really a campaign song, and it that applies so well to what's going on right now with like a presidential campaign. It's literally a candidate talking about another candidate is how I interpret it. You know, here come old flat top, which is a way that you would refer to another political candidate. You know, he was, he won Holy Roller. Yeah. One thing I could tell you is you got to be free. Come together right now over me, which is, that was my interpretation. It was during an election year. I was in high school, and that's how I interpreted it. But it was kind of written that way. When you research it, it was kind of written as a sort of a political song.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you sent us that text, it was like that song just kind of snapped into place for me. I was like, that is exactly what it has to be.
Yeah.
And some of the lines are, he's got feet down below his knees, right? It sounds like a candidate looking for something negative to say about another candidate.
Right.
You can't vote for him. He's wearing a shirt.
He's got 2 ears on the sides of his heads right here. Yeah.
Exactly. one and one is three, you know, is another great line that sounds like it could be in a campaign speech. You know? That's how you say one and one is three, and everybody cheers. Yes, we've done the math. He's right about that.
Where's the lie? Where's the lie?
It's such a great song, and it's a song that I think is often misinterpreted. But yeah, a lot of people think it's a sex innuendo song,
right?
You know?
And then nonsensical shit where I was like, oh, there was so much more to this.
Yeah, a lot of the Beatles were playing tricks, I think. A lot of their nonsensical stuff, in other music, a lot of the nonsensical stuff makes for perfect rhymes or perfect rhythm or perfect iambic pentameter. But the Beatles would put something nonsensical into a song because it rhymed. And then in the very next lyric, they would double time the syllables to the same melody just to prove that they didn't need to make up a word to fit in there, you know?
Yeah.
And that happens in this song too. There's a syncopated lyric, and it's going to take me a second to get to it in my head, but there's it's the same melody, but it's sung, it's like twice as many syllables sung along the same melody, you know?
I threw my notes on the floor. I'd pull it up.
That's all right. I'll get to it.
Now I'm trying to think of it.
Yeah, it's hard when you have come together in your head to think
Yeah,
of.
I know. I have come on flat top. Whatever.
But it's also makes it more interesting musically when you realize, oh, they put a lot more words into that melody in that other verse, or a lot more syllables.
I'm looking for a line that has a lot more syllables.
Yeah, or it's just it's like spoken on the halftime or sung on the halftime.
For people and things went before. I know I'll often stop and think about is it around there?
Yeah. It's, I know I'll often stop and think about them. It's, I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. No, it's,
though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. It seems like
yeah. It's that part. I think that's the part I'm talking about. I think there's another part in the song where they do that in half as many syllables or something. But it's just, I think they were doing things like that intentionally in their music. But in songs like "Come Together," where they wanted to make sure that I think people knew that maybe the nonsensical words meant something, and to look it up and try to figure out what it meant, you know?
And that's fun. Give them a riddle, give people a task. I like that.
Oh yeah.
One more thing about the Beatles before we just talk about all their songs is we had written down that we have to do Imagine at some point, just because, you know, you see all the commercials for Imagine and the way we use Imagine, when it was basically, he has said this was his communist manifesto pretty much.
Oh yeah. And that's another beautiful melody. That's the great part about Imagine, right? Is it's such a beautiful melody that little kids will like a song that might be the revolution song, you know?
Right.
But that's another song that's just I think John Lennon's an underrated vocalist. His vocals on that and his vocals on In My Life, you could tell that he really was, had emotion into the vocals of it.
Yeah.
And and Imagine, it has grammatical errors in it, and it's still a beautiful song. It's like and it's another one of those melodies where he starts it out and then kind of finishes the melody at the end of the song. And Imagine is one of the reasons why people are pretty sure that John wrote the melody for In My Life.
Okay.
Because that's another one of those. It's another one of those melodies that's just so balanced and mathematic, and you can predict the changes the first time you hear it.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Tommy, I think that you, out of all the guests we've had, have nerded out the hardest on the song.
Yes.
I have issues, guys. I'm obsessed with the Beatles, but I was very, I was developing emotionally when John Lennon got shot, and it was, and it was just a weird time, where pop culture was still kind of in its infancy, and everybody that was famous was still alive.
Right.
It was like the TV hadn't been in every house for very long. It's the people that had died that were on TV were very old.
Well, I mean, hold on. Didn't Elvis die in 77?
Elvis died in 77. Yes, Elvis died in 77. So he was kind of he was important too.
I mean, he
But
might have been a little bit of a big deal.
he was a big deal. And if there wasn't any Elvis, there wouldn't be any John Lennon. If we're gonna nerd out on Beatles,
Yeah.
John Lennon bought a leather jacket, fixed his hair like Elvis, got a guitar because he wanted to be Elvis.
Everything comes back to Elvis. Everything comes back always to Elvis. Swirls back to Elvis.
And Elvis wanted to be Little Richard, you know, and and this is where the Beatles come from. And when you get to the Beatles, it's where all other popular music comes from.
That's really weird when we think about, the Earth and the Big Bang Theory. Where did everything start? What if everything in music just swirls to Little Richard? No one gives him the credit for it.
It kind of does. In popular music, it kind of does.
Yeah.
You know?
We should be putting him on a pedestal a lot brighter than we do.
You know, the Elvis thing, the reason why the Elvis thing didn't affect me is because I was too young.
Yeah, I was born that same year.
Yeah, and a couple years later, and it's why John Lennon imprinted on me in a way that he didn't imprint on Ben. It's because of the age I was. And I would imagine that, if you were talking to somebody 4 or 5 years older than me, they would have a similar imprint about Elvis.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with the Beatles. I nerded out a lot on this, but I can't. You're just lucky that we aren't talking about Rocky Raccoon, because it would be worse. It would be so much worse. You have no idea.
Give us 100 episodes. We'll come back to you and we'll do Rocky Raccoon.
Excellent. I would love that.
Tommy, can you pick a favorite Beatle? Do you have a favorite Beatle, or is it wrong to ask? Is it wrong to have a favorite?
Oh, I don't think it's wrong to ask. Yeah, I probably think that John Lennon is my favorite Beatle, but I can make an argument for any of them,
Yeah.
And at different times in my life, I channel different Beatles, I feel like, but this was this mug had black coffee with a shot of whiskey in it. And I think that's John Lennon. I think that's very John Lennon.
Oh.
I don't see I think Paul might have tea with a shot of something in it,
Well, I think George Harrison was the hottest, which goes with my sparkling water.
George Harrison was the hottest.
Yeah.
He was. There's no question that George Harrison was the pretty one.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between being the pretty one and being the one that you're most attracted to, right?
That's true. That's true. Donnie Wahlberg was my favorite New Kid on the Block.
Yeah.
Oh, you like the bad boys.
I was 11, okay?
If Donnie was your favorite New Kid, John would have been your favorite Beatle.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, there's no question about that, because, John's the dangerous one.
Yeah.
For sure. But I've I love all the Beatles. But yeah, I think I'm most connected to John. I've gone through my Paul phases.
Okay. Why do you switch back and forth? I know the melody he wrote on this is so good, it makes me love him more. I mean, what's the back and forth?
There's songless, there's solo stuff. There are times in my life riding sort of a sine wave of highs and lows in entertainment where I need to hear some John Lennon double fantasy solo album stuff, which can be heavy and gritty and cool and hip. And then there are times I want to listen to like Paul McCartney Wings, which is way more sort of road trippy and poppy and beautiful, And you watch a movie like Mr. Holland's Opus, and you fall in love with John Lennon for the song "Beautiful Boy," and then somebody covers "Live and Let Die" again, and you fall in love with Paul McCartney again.
Axl Rose. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to, I love George Harrison and Ringo Starr too.
Oh, that would be a funny game. Like, you guys call out a Beatles song and I give you the person who's covered it. I just give you the wrong person.
That is a fun game.
Live and Let Die. Axl Rose. Somebody. Martin Gore from Depeche Mode. I just get them all wrong.
That used to be a game that I played when I was, because I knew so much about the Beatles. I'd be a teenager, like in a girl's bedroom, and she'd have her music collection, which was at this time it's most of it is cassettes all lined up, and I go, you're a Beatles fan. She goes, what? I go, you got a bunch of bands there that covered Beatles songs. She'd be like, no, I don't think I do. I go, yeah, I bet you do. I win that bet every time, because at the time there wasn't a freaking album that didn't have a Beatles song on it,
Yep. Ben, do you have any more on the subject?
I think I'm a George guy when it comes down to it. But this because like anytime somebody mentions the Beatles, I immediately start the song that I hear is something in the way.
Oh, that's such an incredible song. And that's another one that I could talk about for hours. Sinatra said that was the greatest love song ever written.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But that is another love lyric that acknowledges other lovers.
Yeah.
Quite right.
It does, yeah. And that's what made the song more interesting. But yeah, it's another beautiful melody. And it's a song that was written about a woman that was essentially married to George Harrison and Eric Clapton at the same time.
Yep.
So of course she had the same woman that Layla was written about.
Oh, wow.
Something was written about.
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary woman.
Wow. Dang.
Fairly legendary.
Well, this was
but it's
awesome.
another.
Tommy, I think you should start your own podcast where you just cover a different Beatles song every time.
Yeah,
maybe.
I just don't know. I'm sure they are. That's the thing about Beatles songs is they're so sort of overly analyzed,
Yeah.
Sort of, I'm proud of you guys. I think we talked about stuff that people don't normally talk about with this song, but they're so overanalyzed. I think at one point I mentioned I kind of want to talk about Helter Skelter with you guys, but it's been so overdone.
It just goes in such a Manson avenue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That you're kind of exhausted with it, and I think this one, even though it's been over debated, I think people just kind of accept the lyrics without really listening to them sometimes.
Right.
Because there are things in there that I guarantee you could not say to your husband over dinner tonight without starting some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know.
Or that I couldn't say to my wife, without having to explain myself. I mean, she would recognize the lyrics, but still, there are things that probably shouldn't be in a love song.
Or you're just like, either you're like, can you elaborate that, or be like, can we just not right now?
Well, I have a comic friend. I know you guys know him. His name is Augie Smith, and it's made me think he has a brilliant joke where his wife asked him to write his vows for their wedding because he's a writer. She says, "You're a writer," and he goes, "Yeah, but what I write is really honest, he goes, I don't think you want the word probably in a wedding vow."
It's really good.
It's such a great joke, but it makes me think about this song and lyrics like something is it's really, you're being super honest. You're not saying, oh, you're the only one. The song my wife and I danced to for our first dance at our wedding was Nothing by Whitney Houston. I have nothing if I don't have you. Mm-hmm. That's a lie. Most love songs are complete and total lies.
Right, exactly.
No, if I don't have you, I still have some of my stuff. I don't have nothing.
Yeah.
I'm still a person, but it's the lie of a love song that's romantic. And, and this lyric was super honest,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have other people.
Yeah,
but I love you more.
Yeah, this is hotter. It's like honest and being like, but you're the best, instead of that lie of like, you're the only one. It's like, well, I know I'm not. I've seen your phone.
Right, exactly. That's how the song was written. But also, you're giving yourself credibility.
Yeah.
It's like when people come up to you after the show, they say, you're the best comic I've ever seen. And I say, well, who else have you seen? you know, because I might be. Give me a list of names, you know. Nope,
David,
I'm not.
David
I'm actually the
Chuber.
third best. Yeah, I'm actually the third best comic you've seen. I know
David
a lot about
Chuber,
comedy.
Ben Mowbray.
Yeah, exactly. You're the best comic I've ever seen. But it's like, oh, you're the love of my life. Well, what do you know about love? Prove it.
Yeah, and you're 19.
Yeah. Tell me about your other loves. Tell me about other things that you've loved. And he talks about places and things and lovers.
Right.
You know, tell me about the other places and things that you've loved to prove that you know enough about love to tell me that you love me more.
Right.
You know, so I love that idea. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, you're giving yourself credibility. You're listing your resume is what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is what I know about love.
Well, this is fun. This is good. I feel like I need to cut it off because we might go till midnight. So
Okay. I can't stop. I just can't stop talking about it.
No, it's great. It's great. We're definitely going to have you back and we're going to pick another one, but we're also
going to do Rocky Raccoon, right?
Yes.
Ben told me if I did this,
Absolutely.
that for sure I would get to do that. That was the deal.
It's a deal. It's a deal. All right, I'll do our dressed up like a douche segment. This one comes from comedian Paul VargheseHall. Everybody knows Paul.
I love Paul.
Yeah. His just made me laugh because it was just so quick. He said, before Shazam, I thought the Hall & Oates was singing, "You're a bitch, girl." Which he does say the word bitch later in the song, but it's
Yes.
"You're a rich girl."
You're a rich
gone
girl.
Too far. That's great. I mean, that would be I think it would have been just as popular if it was "You're a bitch, girl."
Yeah, it's a good misheard lyric.
Yeah. So good job, Paul. All right. Ben, do you have a guilty pleasure song?
I do. It's kind of a weird one. It's oddly specific. My guilty pleasure song this week is Spirit in the Sky, but not the Norman Greenbaum original version. I'm talking about the Doctor and the Medics 1986 80s hair metal with the weird eyebrows, trying to look like a badass, crawling up a tiny little metal staircase. Going on up to the speed. I love that song. That has been in my iPod since 2005 and definitely in heavy rotation in my brain since 1986.
Oh, it's Christian rock.
If people, it takes a lot to remake a song. Like, you have to really believe in your version. Put out.
Yeah.
And that's a really good version of that song. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's the
a
first
fun
time
version of it, but it's also like, I'm glad they did, because I probably never would have come across that song if they hadn't. But it's still kind of crazy to me to like, you listen to the Norman Greenbaum version, it's like, okay, that's fantastic, that's a classic. Why would you basically make a shot-for-shot remake of that? Yeah.
Why would you dress up like Cinderella and other glam rock bands and do it?
Liquid eyeliner. They were doing wonders. Sorry.
Well, I'll stay in that same vein. I'll do mine next. And it's a little ditty that starts, "Tomo arigato, Mr. Roboto."
Oh, excellent.
I love Styx.
Roboto.
Mr. Roboto was such a bizarre, weird song to me when I was a kid, and I loved it. And I still, Corbin actually brought it up, and he was like, "Do you like this song?" I'm like, "I love it." And he's like, "You got to do it as a guilty pleasure. It's so good."
That's like Dennis DeYoung. Styx, right? Did you say Styx?
Styx.
Yeah. It's a great vocal too. It's a weird vocal, but it's a great vocal. Okay, and this is weird. I get what a guilty pleasure is, and I hope that this qualifies, but They Might Be Giants, Birdhouse in Your Soul.
Yes.
Yes.
You know that song? Does that count as a guilty pleasure, or is that just kind of a cool song?
If you feel like you're ashamed of liking it, it's a guilty pleasure. We have loose rules on this.
I love this. Yeah. I'm your only friend. I'm not your only friend, but I'm a little glowing friend. But really, I'm not actually your friend, but I am. It's just such a good lyric.
Yeah.
I love it, but you're right. I guess if you got into my car and that song was like jamming when I turned it on, I would probably turn it down really fast.
Yeah, that's kind of our working definition. Is if you turn the volume up and roll your windows up at the same time, that's a guilty pleasure song.
Yeah.
Yeah, Becky and I have a joke that while we're asleep, somebody sneaks into the garage and turns the volume up really loud. on our radios
Uh-huh.
in the cars.
And
So
then
when
you
we
get
turn
in
it on.
Yeah, I got in the car the other day and my son was like, "Mommy, it's loud." I was like, "Mommy was listening to Styx. I'm sorry." Yeah. All right. Well, this was great, man. Great episode. I'm glad we finally got to cover the Beatles.
Thanks for thinking of me for Beatles stuff. It's so good to chat with you guys. I'm a big
Oh, it's good
fan,
to see
so
you.
I'm glad to get to do this with you guys.
Well, I
Thank
can't
you,
wait to
Tommy.
do
This
it
was a lot of
again.
fun.
Yes, thank you, Ben.
All right. We're going to say goodbye to Tommy. I don't know how. Get out of here, Tommy.
Okay, I'll go. I'll go. I think I can click something. I'm muted. Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Wizard.
Okay. I guess I could have asked him to stay for the end part, but like I said, I have anxiety about it. Special thank you to Chuck Savage and Eddie Hawkins for our amazing intro music, and to Sara Wessling for the Guilty Pleasures vocals, which no one gets to hear on YouTube. You know, I don't cut those in. So hopefully, go listen to one episode that's not on YouTube if you're strictly on YouTube.
Have John on again and get her to pop in and do it.
Yeah. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join our Patreon for $5 a month at patreon.com/rockthecashbar. With that $5, you'll get some cool swag and the chance to vote on every other song that we cover. We pick one week, you get to vote on one the next week. We have a Spotify playlist. I hope people are listening to it because I am updating it frequently, and I listen to it when I need just some music in the background. I play our Spotify playlist, which has all the songs we cover plus the guilty pleasure songs, which makes it extra fun, I think. You can find it, you can search for it on Spotify, or it's on our website, rockthecashbarpodcast.com. There's a link to it. Thank you guys for tuning in. New episodes every Thursday. If you have a misheard song lyric you'd like us to read on the podcast, you can email us, you can Facebook us, you can tweet us, all the things, and we will do it. Thank you guys for the nice reviews. We've been getting some nice reviews, and that's awesome. Keep it going. I love reading good stuff. One person gave us 1 star. Hopefully that was a mistake, but whatever. I'll take it.
I've got lots of enemies. Who knows?
All right, you guys. Thank you so much, and we will see you next Thursday. Boom.
Bogue.